Hi guys, this is Vidya and I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to talk about some ways in which we can respect our children. I'm not talking about how we can teach our children to respect others, but how we ourselves can show respect to our children. Why do I think it's so important to raise our children respectfully? Now, most of us are raising our children the way we have been raised. Not that it was a bad way of parenting. Most of us have turned out pretty good, but every method needs improvements. We can make things better. We can make the next generation better. We can make our relationships better with our children by making some changes, right? And most of us have been taught to respect elders, respect teachers, respect figures of authority. Bado ka aadar karna chahiye. So what is wrong with this? Well, it makes it sound like we are being submissive. We are respecting without questioning. We cannot have a discussion, an argument. If we respect everyone for just what they are, we can even have a discussion, an argument, a disagreement respectfully. And that's the kind of world we want our children to be raised in, right? And if we can start doing this in our homes from day one, because the first relationship that your child has in this world ever is with you, the parent. If we can make that a mutually respectful one, we will be raising a generation that is more respectful to each other, and even more importantly, that is more respectful to themselves. The first way, which is also very impactful, is the way you talk to your child. If we can be more respectful in the way we communicate with our child, it makes a big difference. And I don't mean don't use baby voice, like your baby voices and those cooing sounds and the high-pitched sounds that we make when we talk to infants is absolutely fine, because their hearing is still developing and it's perfectly natural for us to talk to babies in that baby cooing kind of voice. But as they're getting older, try to talk normally as much as possible and not belittle them. They talk like babies because that's how they can talk. They can't talk like adults. But if we talk like babies to them, they'll be like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you talk normally, right? So when you're talking to them, try to talk normally and try to answer all of their questions respectfully, earnestly. And that means having a little bit more patience and spending more time being in the present, because they're going to have a zillion questions as they become toddlers, and for good reason, because they're figuring out the world, right? So for example, if your child is eating something off the floor, you say, don't eat that, and they obviously say why, and you respond with, because that's yucky. And they say, but why is it yucky? And you say, it's yucky, that's it, don't eat it. And that's the end of the conversation. That is, instead of that, if we can say that's yucky because when it falls on the floor, there could be dirt, and dirt has germs, and if they get into our belly, they might give us a bellyache, that could make us sick. And at every point, there'll be a why. So if we can answer those questions a little bit more patiently, that is showing them that we respect the questions that they're asking, and their questions are valid, right? Because we know the things that we know only because we've lived in this world for a little longer than them. There's no other reason, and they're still just figuring it out. Another aspect of talking respectfully means asking them to do certain things. Being respectful doesn't mean letting them do whatever they want, but when they're doing an activity or playing with something, try not to interrupt them. And when you have to, try not to do it disrespectfully. Like, try not to be very abrupt about it. For example, if your child is playing with something, building a tower of blocks, they are not just playing, they are concentrating on that. They are learning how to balance the blocks one on top of the other. So if it is time for them to have their lunch, we give like 1 or 2 warnings. We say, stop that and come have your lunch. And then when they completely ignore us, which is valid because they are engrossed in their activity, we say, did you hear me? Come on, let's have our lunch. And when they still don't hear us, we start losing our patience and say, come right now, put that away and come right now. So we think we're being patient, but we're not really being respectful. So instead of that, come over to them, see what they're doing, and say, oh, I see you've built a tall tower of blocks. How about have some lunch, get some more energy, so build it and come back and build it. And they'll say, no, I really want to build it right now. And then you're like, yes, I know you're building it right now. How about 5 more blocks and then you can come have lunch? So have like that dialogue both ways so that it's a win-win situation. Your child doesn't feel like they have to drop everything and listen to your wishes. Sometimes it might be unavoidable to do that when you're getting late or something, and they might get upset in which case it's important to explain it to them after the fact, why you had to leave or why you had to stop their playtime. And that brings me to the next point, which is to acknowledge their emotions. Of course, they're going to be upset when you're disrupting their activities. I mean, they don't have the concept of time and that you are getting late for an appointment, right? So understand their frustration and try to explain it as much as possible, that there is someone else who's waiting for us, so we really need to go, and that kind of an approach. And the same goes with the other emotions that they're feeling. Instead of dismissing them, try to be there when they're experiencing it. So instead of saying stop crying or get over yourself or be a big girl or a big boy, try to be there and understand where they're coming from. You could say, I know that's very upsetting that your toy broke, but next time maybe we can be more careful. Or if they're saying, I'm scared of something, instead of saying, don't be scared, that's not scary, because that invalidates what they're feeling. They're like, but I'm feeling scared. It's a spider, for example. You could talk about the spider, you could show them pictures about it, let them overcome their fear naturally. It will guaranteed take more time to do this, instead of saying just be quiet, because when you say be quiet, they will most likely be quiet out of fear and not because they have processed that emotion. If you help them process the emotions, it will be more time consuming but also more lasting, I believe. Next really simple way in which you can instantly change the dynamic between you and your child is talking at an eye-to-eye level. When they're toddlers, it's not always possible, but especially when you're dealing with a tantrum or answering a question or having like a conversation about something, try to get down on their level and make eye contact. It's impossible to look down upon someone when you're at their level, literally, right? So it basically, your body language shows that respect to your child, and your child will not have someone towering over them like an authority figure giving them instructions to do something, but they'll have someone, an ally, someone they can share easily with. But whenever you can, and especially in stressful situations, get down on your child's level and let them talk to you eye to eye without them having to look up at you or look down at you. Earlier in the video, I spoke about how talking to your child conveys your respect. The other important aspect of this is talking about your child to other people when they may or may not be present, directly in the conversation. And this happens all the time when your children are younger. When your children are babies and people come to visit, we talk about our child so easily, not noticing their presence. So when they're babies, it may not matter that much, but when they're getting a little bit older, and even before they can talk, they can understand all of our words, we sometimes forget that there's a little person in the room who's listening to every single thing that we say, and we are the most important person in the world, literally, to them. And I cannot emphasize this enough, because the words we say about them, they are going to absorb like that, and they are going to make it part of their personality. And if you look around, you'll see examples all the time. You'll see mothers talking about their children while they're still there. We say things like, he does not sleep all night, or he's such a picky eater, or his tantrums are getting really bad these days. And while the child is still present, he may not look like the child may not look like they're listening, but they definitely are. And I catch myself doing this all the time. Like, it's a struggle, because we sometimes need to vent to our friends, and when they ask us a question, we want to give them the real answer, the real struggle that we are having with our child, right? So let's try to understand that there's another person present about whom we're talking, and that's not very respectful, right? The next time someone's asking a question about your child and your child is present, try to include them in the conversation, even though they might seem completely clueless, and try to explain it in a way that is not disrespectful to the child. So instead of saying the child did not sleep all night, you could say, yeah, we are still learning how to sleep through the night, we're getting there slowly. Instead of saying your child is a very picky eater and does not like vegetables, you could say things like, we are still exploring our food, we're still learning about vegetables, there are so many delicious vegetables that we still want to try. Things like that make you seem a little weird to the other parent, but I feel it's completely okay. Next one along those lines is, try not to scold your child publicly. It makes you look like a strict parent, but it gives the child a lot of shame. And so if you have to deal with a tough situation, try to remove the child from there, go to a quiet place, or deal with it after you come home, but try not to do it at that same place. There are times when you have to stop a child from doing something. So in that case, take your child to a corner, get down on their level and explain it to them. It might take longer and it may or may not work, which is also okay. And you could deal with it later when you come home. But try not to make a scene out of it in front of other people, which causes a child shame and makes them feel disrespected. They may not be able to put words to their emotions. They may not be able to say, "Mom, the way you're talking to me is disrespectful to me." But that does not mean that you can do it to them, right? It does not mean that they're not feeling it. And these kind of things come up later in their life when they're dealing with relationships of their own. Lastly is a tricky one, which seems simple but it's not easy all the time, which is to keep your word. Whenever you make a promise to your child, try to keep it, even if the child forgets it. Let's say your child wants to watch TV but you were running late for an appointment, so you say to them, let's go now because we are getting late. After you come back, you can watch TV. So when you come back, you don't have to do it the first thing, but after they get settled in, after they do what they need to do, you can say, "Hey, didn't you want to watch TV before we left? You could do it now." So that makes them, gives them trust in their mothers, that whatever mom says, mom does. So even if they forget it, you could remind them and keep your promises. It's not a great idea to bribe your child for every small thing, but if you do make a promise, try to stick to it so that they know they can trust you and they can believe you. If your child asks for a cookie before lunch and you say, "Not right now, but after lunch you can have a cookie," make sure you give them the cookie after lunch so that they believe you the next time you say something like that. And obviously try not to lie and make promises that you can't keep. It may seem easier to just let it go in the short run, but in the long run they're losing their trust on us little by little. So those were the ways in which we can implement respect for our children in our daily lives. Thank you for watching my video and I hope to see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye.